Welcome to another edition of Insurance Questions Podcast. Don, where am I? I'm lost.
Yeah, you're in a different place.
I am. Where am I? Do you know?
There are some different people too joining us.
Why don't you both tell us who you are? How about you, young man? Are you from Buffalo originally?
I'm Nathan Sakaya, yes. When I was very young, my dad is a minister, and his first church was in Buffalo, New York, actually Orchard Park.
You were right by the stadium, right?
That's right. We lived in a house. We could hear the football games from our house, the first house that we lived in.
At 6-year-old, did they have you out there selling parking spots in front of the house?
I don't remember selling parking spots,
But
but maybe so. Yeah, I mean, they don't pay pastors a lot, so yeah, I was probably used.
Talk just a little bit louder.
Yeah, you really project your voice, Nathan, like you want the judge to hear you.
Okay.
That's right.
Because Nathan's a lawyer.
Oh,
And I'm not here for him to help me with anything. So,
I thought you were in
Good
trouble
thing.
again.
and who are you, young lady? What are you doing?
My name is Abby, and I just recently started with Nathan. He semi-recently started our new firm out here in North Texas. So I've just joined the team to kind of help, take the firm off and see what we can do out here.
And I just want to do some housekeeping before we get started. All the comments and statements by Eddie Buffalo, Donnie Lowe, Nathan, and Abby are purely for entertainment purposes. And do your thing, Donnie. What do you got to say? Do your sassy Sarah thing.
Yeah, we have to like, subscribe, fan mail, reach out to us, all of that stuff that you do with social media.
Good job, Donnie Lowe. Good job.
Should I give a little bit more of my background here?
Yeah, let's hear more about you, Nathan.
Okay, so I consider myself having grown up in East Tennessee. I'm volunteered. I lived in East Tennessee through Summer Middle School, high school, undergrad, went to Covenant College, Lookout Mountain, Georgia, and then law school at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. After graduating, we moved to the Seattle-Tacoma area where I practiced for about 25 years. Had a practice there that was very successful and grew. Eventually, I have 4 boys. Eventually, one of my boys started school in North Texas. Well, he was in East Texas at LeTourneau University. I have another one that's at Baylor now. And so we decided, let's move to Texas. And we moved here about 3 years ago. The firm is called North Texas Law, which is up and running, based in McKinney.
What's your address, Nathan?
Oh, what is the address here, Abby?
2309 Virginia Parkway in McKinney, Texas.
I was just going to read it. And by the way, I got lost coming to their office today because Google let me down. I was like 6 miles away from where I was supposed to be. And I've passed this place a bazillion times. Okay. Yeah. So usually we talk about insurance, taxes, or annuities, but we're going to talk about some interesting stuff. And Donnie, I believe you have some questions for Nathan. You want to share this one?
Kind of dig into your expertise if we can.
Are you guys going to be on the show for our 100th?
Maybe.
Whoa.
That would be cool.
Salt, table of 1, Abby. Maybe. Let's see if we like it. Eddie Buffalo, if that is your real name. It's not. So what do you got for Nathan?
Well, just maybe we can start off because you do some estate planning, I believe, right?
Right.
And the way the world is going, every industry is changing due to technology with AI and being online and everything. In your field, can people do any type of estate planning online? Is that an option?
Interesting that you asked that. We actually do estate planning for folks all over the state of Texas. And, I see folks occasionally that will use some of these online estate planning programs or systems. And a lot of times, well, most of the time when I see that, that is because we are fixing that and we are redoing that. The problem with those, I mean, there's quite a few, but one obvious problem is that there are terms often used in estate planning that someone who, is not a lawyer, who doesn't do estate planning on a regular basis, they're not going to know what those terms mean, but they're going to assume that they know. And the end result is often that the estate planning that is produced for them does not match up with what they want. And really, with clients, and it's not just for estate planning, it's for any type of contract, whether it's wills or the purchase and sale of a commercial building, the purchase and sale of a residence. The goal of the attorney is to make sure that what's on the paper matches what the client or clients want, right? And oftentimes that is hearing what the clients want and then running it through the legalese filter to get the correct legalese down and then explaining it to the client. So all that to say, I don't recommend using the online programs, and we spend a lot of our time fixing, redoing those types of things, it's also puzzling to me that people do that, because really simple estate planning, wills, powers of attorneys, healthcare directives, that's a relatively inexpensive thing to do, or it should be inexpensive when you have an attorney, doing it. And that's a segue into some other types of estate planning like trusts that I'd be happy to talk about. But really, for most folks, if you're dealing with one of the most important things in your life, and arguably that your heirs are going to have to deal with, have it done right. It doesn't have to break the bank. Just hire an attorney to do it.
No, that's so true. And Ed, you can attest to this. When we sit down with clients and we're kind of reviewing whether they have life insurance yet or not, maybe they're just starting to explore that. We always ask three questions, outside of the actual life insurance.
Where's your money? Where can I find your money? And sign right here.
That's right. That's right. Oh, man. No, we always ask, do you have a will? Do you have a power of attorney? And do you have a healthcare proxy? And, because those are three basic legal entity or forms that really everybody should have to protect themselves and their estate, their family. So I'm not sure if the laws in Texas are similar or different than in New York State, where I am, regarding powers of attorney or healthcare proxy. I don't know if that's an area that
I want to piggyback on
want to go into
too, Don, if I could, and I didn't mean to talk over you. Sarah's not here to holler at me, so you're on your own today. We usually tell our people, because we try to meet with our folks at least once a year. Depends if they need more stuff done. If it's a little bit more complicated, we'll do more than that. And we always bring up, talk to your guy about a will every year, guy or girl, do you suggest meeting with people yearly about their wills? Or if nothing's changed, can you wait a couple of years? What is the school of thought on that for you?
My school of thought is that if it's done right, it should only have to be done one time, right? There are circumstances where someone may come back and say, you know what? I wanted this person to be the executor of my will, but now we kind of had a falling out and we'd like to change that. Or I had a kid, I wanted him to get an equal share with the other kids, but boy, his life is a train wreck now, and I'm not sure I want to do that. In which case we will do a simple codicil or amendment to the will. It's not necessary to rewrite the will. So in other words, the way that I practice is no, the client should not have to be coming back to the attorney over and over, year after year, to have this done. And one of the ways that we do that is I really stay away from what's known as specific bequests. That is a specific item that is going to a particular person, right? I like shares. I like percentages. That way, regardless of what the client owns later on in their life, they don't have to go back and change their will. So, for example, if they say, I want to give the house at 245 Grand Prairie to my son, Dexter, and they no longer live at 245 Grand Prairie, they got to go back and fix their will because they live in another house, right? I don't like that. I like percentages and shares so that folks do not have to go back and change it when their life changes, right?
That makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah.
You know, and as you were talking about that, I was thinking, well, what if somebody has like a maybe a valuable collection of art, of paintings, as an example, and they want to designate a certain Monet to somebody,
And all your gold bars and your platinum that you polish all the
yeah.
time, Don. It's important too to be, take care of in the will.
That's right.
That's an interesting point because I mean we come across this quite a bit with, to be perfectly frank, guns. You know, particular guns that have been passed down through the family, Civil War guns, that kind of thing, and they want, a father would want those to go to a particular son. Those are personal property, and this is state by state, right? So I'm admitted to practice in Washington State. I'm admitted to practice in Texas. Abby's working on getting me admitted in East Tennessee, or in Tennessee, so I can do some work when I'm there visiting folks. Which, by the way, I see that on the screen. I've heard you point out that Sarah looks really pale. I look really red. I was in East Tennessee yesterday, and I was working outside quite a bit. We did do a great hike in the Smokies in the Townsend, Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge area, and so
nice.
I can see now looking at the screen.
I'm sorry, I don't know what show he's watching. I never said anything about Sarah being pale, ever. Never, ever, ever.
I heard it.
Okay?
I saw it. It happened.
So,
it happened.
hey, I got a question for you, Nathan.
Yeah.
Since we have so many people moving from California to Texas, what is this California trust package that I hear them talking about?
Sure. So I should give you a little bit more of my background so you know where I'm coming from. When I first started practicing in Washington State, I was taken on by a firm, and right about when I started, one of the main partners of that firm quit. And he was actually the one that hired me. And all the files that were in his office, a lot of the files, ended up in my office, on my desk. And a lot of those were will and trust disputes, litigation, where families were fighting about trusts. And they were spending all their money on this fight. They were paying attorneys a fortune. And everybody had their own attorneys. Because of that, and because I have litigation experience, and I also do estate planning, I approach estate planning from kind of a different perspective than a lot of attorneys who maybe haven't had a litigation experience, which is we want to avoid litigation. We don't want to do estate planning that's going to end up running or living for 50 years, because 50 years goes by, and eventually somebody's going to think that trustee is stealing from the trust, or somebody's going to think that they're not getting their fair share of the trust. And inevitably, it ends up somebody lawyers up, and there's a lawsuit that's filed. As a result of that, I'm not a big fan of trusts, except in very, very limited circumstances. You can have a trust that will help you avoid federal death taxes in some cases, very complicated trusts. You could also have a trust because you simply just do not want to give a particular kid, a child, a ton of money outright. You want somebody to manage that, invest it for them, and then
smoking the dope, drinking. Yeah, that happens. Like you, Donnie Lowe. Yeah, I wouldn't trust you with a lot of cash, that's for sure.
So, what has the California trust that Eddie's referring to is, in California, folks avoid wills and avoid probate because it's my understanding that in California, attorneys get to charge a percentage of the estate, right? And it doesn't matter how much or how little work they do.
bathroom is?
Oh, okay.
Eddie's gonna go to the bathroom now.
He's being goofy.
Yes. I gotta check out the office is beautiful. You gotta check it out, right? Okay, I'm sorry about that, Nathan. I interrupt if you never noticed.
Yeah. He doesn't hate to interrupt. So, people want trusts there in California. They set up trusts. These are very complicated trusts. What causes people to desire to do that in California doesn't exist in most other states.
Why is that, Nathan?
Well, in most other states, attorneys are not allowed to charge fees that are not directly proportional to the work that they do, right? So most bars, Washington example, I think Texas is an example of that. If you do 2 hours of work and you charge someone 40% of their estate and you end up as a result with $200,000, that is improper, right?
Right.
You should not be doing that. California, apparently you can get away with that. And as a result, the folks in California want to avoid. So what happens then is that there's this notion that, well, everywhere we want to avoid probate. Even in Texas, you'll see firms that just sell very large trust packages to folks. They charge a lot of money for those. And in many cases, those packages are not even really necessary or helpful or are not completely funded, right? So all this trust document is set up and then no one ever does the deed transferring the real estate into the trust. Or no one goes and changes the insurance policy. So the trust is the insured for the home, for example. We spent a lot of time when I was in Washington State unraveling these complicated trusts. We've unraveled 2 since I've been in Texas, where folks came from a different state, had been sold a large trust package, and we're kind of like, what am I doing with this? Like, I don't even know how to manage this. Is it necessary in Texas? No, it's not necessary. Wills are very easy. Probate is opened and closed in a short amount of time. It decreases the likelihood of litigation because it's opened and closed very quickly. And on top of that, it's really inexpensive comparatively. And also, I should mention, in a lot of cases, a probate's not even necessary. You can use survivorship agreements to transfer property automatically without a probate to the surviving spouse. So there are plenty of ways to avoid spending $10,000 on a trust that you do not need.
Right. I think it's important specifically here where we're at in Texas. We have one of the highest number of California transplants coming to this area. And a lot of people are coming with those trusts that were done in California. And Nathan's been kind of unraveling them and saying, you don't need this out here. So it's important for those that are coming from California to, get that fixed and make sure it's a little bit easier on you and your, heirs and stuff. So
that's a good point, Abby. That's true.
I've heard a lot of people say, I don't want one of them wills and I don't want to do that probate. Why are people afraid of that, Nathan?
Did they say it like that?
Well, I've been working on my Texas accent. I was told I need to slow it down. And I could use my Polish accent. Hey, 3 times I asked you that question. I could do my Boston accent. Hey, how you guys doing? What's going on? What are you doing over there, Nathan?
Yeah.
So whatever one you want, I'll use for you.
Well, an East Tennessee accent, it's kind of a how kind of thing.
Kind of like what's his name? Boom, 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 boom. Na, 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 na. What's his name from Blues Brothers?
Yeah,
John Lee Hooker. Great old blues man.
Yeah.
Exactly.
See, I don't go an episode without singing a little bit, and we haven't gotten sued yet. So thank God we're talking to an attorney right now.
So, back to your question. I got to keep this on track, I can tell.
Good luck. Why start now?
Probate. It's you don't need to avoid probate. It's an expensive process. It's an inexpensive process. It's a formality, really, in most cases. It's pro forma. documents are filed, the judge signs off on it. The executor gathers all the assets together, distributes them out for the terms of the will, and then the estate is closed. Estates sometimes are hung up and left open for a long time if the real estate market is bad, because sometimes it takes the executor a long time to sell a piece of real estate. In our market, current market,
I was gonna say, not in Texas.
no, not in North Texas, not in most places that I've seen recently. Certainly not in Washington State. It's not true in East Tennessee. I'm not sure.
Even Buffalo's starting to catch up. I mean, the shelf's empty.
Yeah.
It's not a lot of new builds either, so it is what it is.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And one of the pretty things about most states, and Texas is true, this is true in Texas as well, is there are a lot of mechanisms to avoid probate independent of a trust, right? If you have a will, you can do heirship affidavits. There are ways around it. Like I mentioned before, I'm a big fan of the survivorship agreement. Most of our estate planning packages are what we call mirror wills, which means the husband and wife and their wills are set up so they do the exact same thing. They go to the exact same people, regardless of who passes away first. Everything goes to the surviving spouse. Then everything goes normally out to the children in equal share, something like that. We will have built into the will, a testamentary trust, which I'm a fan of testamentary trusts. Those are trusts built into the will that spring to life for a limited time. In most cases, those typically exist when the children are minor. And then when they reach a certain age, the trustee distributes the assets back out to the kids. You could set it to 23. I think mine's set up so that it goes out to the boys at age 28 or something like that, in full, right? You can distribute out for college and that kind of thing. But all that to say, the survivorship agreement that I was talking about is a simple 2-page document that says, hey, by the way, anything that we have that's separate property, because this is a community property state, and most states are at this point, everything that's separate of mine is community. I'm declaring that here, including things that I acquire later, and I want all my community assets to go to my surviving spouse. Boom. It just happens automatically, right? Mm. In Washington, those are called community property agreements. In Texas, we call them survivorship agreements. But there's just an example of a fantastic way in a typical circumstance where you're talking about a husband and wife, where the first spouse that passes, probate can be completely avoided.
That's a great thing. I think it sounds like it's so easy. So you're mentioning that the cost of a will is very low, very inexpensive. Is there a range that is charged typically, or for a simple will?
Sure. So yeah, simple wills, we typically see them somewhere in the range of $600 or $700, including the powers of attorney. And it's interesting. The most expensive and time-consuming part of estate planning is the signing. Because in most states, you have to have 2 witnesses and you have to have a notary, and they cannot be related or have a financial interest in the will. So those have to be my staff. A typical signing takes somewhere in the range of 30 to 45 minutes. We can usually get it done more quickly.
The staff he's talking about, Abby.
It just may be, one of them.
Yeah, Abby is one of the staff that I'm talking about. So, that's where that's attorney time. That's paralegal time. And that is typically where the bulk of the expense lies. Although in some cases, the bulk of the expense will lie with trying to figure out what the client wants. A lot of times, I think I understand what they want, and then I'll see something that they put in writing on a questionnaire and say, ooh, this is puzzling. What in the world are they talking about? And then when I get them on the phone, sometimes it's even harder to understand what they're. A lot of times my estate planning revolves around just simply saying, this is what I think you should have. And
Nathan knows a guy, Don. He knows a guy.
What about, Nathan, when does someone come to you to have a will written? Like, is it more a stage of life? Is it an age?
That's a
Is it
great
like,
question.
Okay, I now have kids. That's kind of my question as, I recently bought a house. I don't have kids yet, but it's like, when do I go to kind of get that service, I guess, done?
Right. That is a good question. Real estate, if you own real estate, you need to have a will. Most states have a requirement that if you own real estate or your assets are over a certain cutoff, then your state needs to be probated. Washington State, for example, it's 125,000. I think still, I'm not sure exactly what Texas is at this point, but if you have children, definitely. You have the opportunity in your estate planning to specify not only who would be the trustee for your minor children, handling their the money that you set aside for them, but also who are going to be the guardians for them.
Good question.
Who are going to take care of your children if, God forbid, tragically both spouses pass away, and that happens. Spouses travel together. Car accidents happen, especially in North Texas. So,
Through that.
Yeah, I think, kids, definitely. I think if you own real estate, definitely. I think if your assets are getting over, even if you don't own real estate, if your assets are getting to the point where they're, in the $200,000-$300,000 range, probably worth it. And by the way, I should say, if you're married and you are planning on having children, but you don't have children yet, we can still put together estate planning that will be sufficient when you have children, simply by saying that children
That's interesting.
after the fact are treated as receiving an equal share of all the children. So after the spouse, of course, surviving spouse. So everything goes to surviving spouse, then everything goes to any and all children that exist of those spouses in equal shares.
That's funny you say that, because there's even insurances out there now that while the woman's pregnant, they can get insurance on that baby before the baby's born.
That is interesting.
So I got a question for you, okay? Because I'm new to Texas, Now, do I pay you a retainer? Do I pay a fee? And what kind of documents are you going to give me for my estate or my will?
Okay, so yeah, we try to set most of our estate planning at a fixed fee.
Mhm.
No one likes to turn an attorney loose with their hourly rate. I get that, and I have actually realized North Texans in particular have strong opinions about that.
What y'all talking about, Nathan?
No.
Let me tell you what.
Yeah, nobody wants to hire an attorney at an hourly rate, and
Not even Walker, Texas Ranger, I'll tell you what.
that's true. Yep. And I know I'm probably stereotyping a lot here in this podcast about Texans and Tennesseans and Washingtonians and that kind of thing.
All the comments of Nathan are purely from Nathan. We're good, Abby.
What's occasionally we'll have to do hourly. We'll go back to hourly because we realize, wow, this is
A lot of work.
this person is running us around ragged on this stuff, right? But we do try and set a fixed fee on most of our estate planning. Most estate planning comes with a will. You want to do a healthcare power of attorney. You want to do a financial power of attorney. I'm not a fan of combining those two things. I know that some attorneys do. Some of those online programs will combine the two things. I don't like the idea of medical folks poring over a power of attorney that has a bunch of financial information in it too. It should be short, sweet, and clear who has decision-making authority. The other reason is because I like to have the medical powers of attorney effective immediately. While on the other hand, if it's a financial power of attorney that gives authority, decision-making over all these assets, and it's sweeping, I like to have that effective only on incapacity or disability. So it doesn't come, so you don't have two people running around who both have the ability to move finances and do things. When one person loses the capacity, the right of another person to exercise that authority springs to life.
Right.
We also do a healthcare directive typically, which is People refer to that also as the living will. A lot of people remember the Terry Schiavo case and kind of alerted folks to the fact, hey, I need to pay attention to this and get this done. And then for married couples, I always recommend the survivorship agreement so that it goes to the surviving spouse automatically without a probate.
Can I ask you a different question? I mean, thanks for all that information. That was really good.
Great information.
I have a buddy that's going through a divorce, and he wanted me to ask you this question. I have no idea what he's talking about. Chain of title issues? What's up with that?
Yeah. So that's something that I've run into that a lot.
Well, it's like I asked a really bad question. But Nathan doesn't like that question right now. Abby's just giggling over here. Yeah. No, I'm not somebody. No.
Yeah.
Hey, Donnie knows a guy, all right?
Who's Donnie?
Donnie Lowe.
Oh,
Come on now.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
That's
what do
me.
you think I'm talking about? One and only Donnie Lowe.
So, that actually reminds me of the Big Lebowski movie, but I'm not going to do it.
Oh, you gonna make me one of those drinks before I leave? I don't like milk though.
Come on, Donnie.
Once again, the statements of Nathan are purely from Nathan, just so you know.
What are we talking about? Oh, title clearing. Okay, so
Whoa! I thought I didn't pay attention. This is your show, Nathan. And
Chain of custody.
we do a lot of real estate. For 25 years in Washington, in addition to estate planning, I did real estate litigation and transactions as well. So we did a lot of title clearing issues. Title issues are situations where basically someone's supposed to own this real estate, but the title doesn't show the correct person owning the real estate. Occasionally, it's funny that you mentioned divorce, because it'll come up particularly in situations where a spouse passes away and one spouse didn't have a survivorship, the surviving spouse didn't have a survivorship agreement, they don't probate the will, the last vesting deed shows both spouses on title, and that surviving spouse 10 or 15 years later goes to sell or refinance that property, and the title company says, wait a minute, where's Bob? He's still on title. Oh, well, he died a long time ago. Well,
pick him up, give him some money.
We got to solve this problem. It also frequently comes up, I'm talking about North Texas. I'm talking about North Texas attorneys, family law attorneys. If you're out there, listen to me. When a judge says this property goes to this spouse, just complete the deed, transferring it to that spouse. Don't send your clients on down the road with a divorce decree that says one spouse is supposed to receive the property and leave it up to that spouse later on when they realize their former spouse is still on title to have to fix it after the fact. Have your clients either do the deed that the judge ordered, transferring the property, or tell your clients, go have a real estate attorney prepare the deed for your spouse to sign before you your ex-spouse, before you're completely cut ties and never talk to him or her again, right? And so these are the chain of title issues that we're talking about. Title insurance companies are the gods of real estate. They get to decide whether transactions work. Unfortunately, it's not the lawyers. We have to bend the knee to what they want and what they will and will not insure. And if they see someone else that's on title, they are not going to insure the sale or the refinance until that title issue is resolved. And a lot of times that title issue came into being 15, 20, 40 years prior.
Wow.
So
it must take a long time to get that resolved too, I imagine.
Sometimes it does. Yeah.
Now, I got to ask you something, Nathan. We have fiduciary responsibility to do what's right for our clients. And I'm sure you get some yucky people that come in here trying to take advantage of relatives. What do you do in that case?
Yeah, I can usually tell that pretty quick. And I think that's from years.
BS meter?
Yeah. Yeah. Like if you walked in, I'd probably send you on down the road.
Ah, it hurts my heart so much. Wait a second. Do I have one of those? I'm not sure. Maybe. Wow. Salt, table of one. Nathan, you put up with this guy all the time? You can come work for me, Abby.
would you
Honest.
stop
It was
soliciting
so
my
much fun.
employees? Leave my employees alone.
Back off, Nathan.
So,
Free will.
yeah, I mean,
I'm sure you see it more than I'm even thinking you're seeing it.
I'll tell you when I see it most frequently. It's when dad has passed away, mom's getting old, and only one of the kids is close by, and all the other kids are off in Europe or some other part of the States, and they don't see mom that much. Mom starts to feel as though this particular kid is helping her more than the other kids. And this particular kid is putting a lot of influencing mom heavily to change the will or to start making distributions right now. Just start giving me some money, right? You know, you're living at my house. Go ahead and give me the financial power of attorney. Put me on your bank accounts, which, by the way, most bank accounts now have survivorship language in them, which means the account goes to the surviving person automatically.
See, I'm a little bit confused. What's the difference between that and when somebody has power of attorney and you're the stakeholder that you're doing that? And because doesn't it die with the person?
That's interesting. So it's contractual, these survivorship agreements. Let's back up a little bit. Everybody knows what life insurance is, right? That's contractual policy that says, hey, when this person dies, the money goes to this person, this particular money. It used to be when I started practicing that those were the only type of contractual survivorship documents that we would come across. Built into that contract, it says who gets the money, right?
Right.
Now we're finding that almost every type of investment account that we come across, every type of bank account that we come across has the ability to have that contractual survivorship language.
I didn't know that about
built
bank
into
accounts.
it. Okay. Now here's the dilemma. Here's the issue. If you've got, for example, you take out a life insurance policy when you're newly married and you have your first kid, and you take out that policy and you say, my spouse gets it first, and then after her, it's going to go to little Billy, my only kid. And then you forget about that policy. And 30 years go by and you have 5 other kids, right?
Billy's making bank.
And your estate planning, your will says everything goes to the kids in equal shares. Well, guess what? When you pass away, all of your life insurance goes to Billy. And then Billy ends up with 1/5 of the rest of your estate. And Billy contractually is entitled to that and has no obligation. Now, most of the time when we see that happen, Billy will say, I understand that dad screwed up here. I'm going to decline the entire amount to make sure it goes to the kids in equal shares, but not always, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So when we're doing estate planning for clients now, and this is particularly true when you get delved into someone who's coming in with a trust that's all convoluted and a mess, and they don't even know where their real estate is, and they don't know if their bank accounts are in the trust. And then you delve into their accounts and you find out, oh, there's a survivorship contract on this. All of your investments say that they go to this particular kid. That stuff's got to be fixed, right? And I've seen some bad circumstances when it hasn't been fixed. So back to Eddie's question, a power of attorney allows control over, for example, a financial power of attorney while the grantor of the power of attorney is still alive. Once that grantor has passed away, it's the will that governs who has the authority over that property, right? It's not unusual for a client to call us and say, I'll do East Tennessee. I got my,
I can't believe he's doing voices. Who does that?
my East Tennessee, you have to kind of smack your gums together a little bit.
There you go.
All my estate planning is in order because I got power of attorney. You know, I gave Uncle Ricky my power of attorney.
Uncle Ricky. Yes.
And you have to, Ricky Bob, and you have to explain. You have to explain to that person power of attorney does not handle your estate. That power of attorney is for a lot. You don't have your estate planning in place. You've got to get that done, right? And the same is true. You'll hear folks after someone has passed away say, well, I have a power of attorney, and you got to say, yeah, you got to find the will. Who's the executor in the will? Because that's what's governing the situation now.
Yeah, that's true. I guess backtrack just a touch when you said like with the insurance policy, and at the time that they had one child and now they've got five and they never changed their beneficiaries. That's why it's so incumbent upon us as professionals to meet with our clients on an annual basis, because things change, so as they start to have more children, we can, make sure we'll bring it to their attention. Well, your beneficiary says your firstborn. Do you want your second and third born included in this or not?
So
that's why it's
it really
very important to me.
Circles around to meeting with your lawyer or your insurance professional, because what if, okay, Donnie, he died and I'm his beneficiary, but I died 2 years ago. I look pretty good for being a dead guy, but whatever.
Yeah.
But, and that could really cause a lot of friction in families. And if you have a will or estate set up, you're avoiding all that friction. And I'm all about avoiding friction. Believe it or not, Abby. Believe it or not.
Yeah. Well, since you mentioned that, I should talk real quick about what happens if you don't have a will, right? In all states, if you have assets over a certain amount, or you have real estate and you pass away, then we have, and there's no will, we have what's called an administration at that point, right? Mm-hmm. And the difference is that an administration is a very hands-on, from the court's perspective, hands-on process where the court has to find an administrator. People get to petition the court. Usually the administrator will have to post a bond, right? Multiple hearings means multiple attorney bills. In addition, the court's going to follow the statutory scheme for the distribution of the assets, which it's different state by state, but generally it's going to go out to the children, and then it's going to go down to the grandchildren, and then up to like the decedent's own siblings and parents, right? So there's a process that follows, but it's a very expensive process, and the biggest downside is you don't get to decide where your assets go. It goes per the statutory scheme. The state doesn't take it like most people think, but it's a very expensive process where it doesn't go where you want your assets to go. It can be very easily resolved with a simple will that says, this is where I want my assets to go. Which reminds me, Eddie, I don't think I ever completely answered your question about personal property, or maybe that was Don's question about personal property.
Don doesn't talk much, so it's probably me. Yeah.
Probably you.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of states allow personal property to be distributed on a personal property memorandum. That's a separate document that you can keep with the will, and you can just say, hey, I want this gun to go to this person. And you can change it and you sign it, and whatever is written on it at the end and is with your will is where that personal property is going to go. It's a very flexible, nice system. Yeah. Texas per se does not have a personal property memorandum. We get around that by calling it a personal property. Now, maybe we do call it a memorandum. Washington calls it a gift list. We call it a memorandum, but we treat it as a holographic will, which Texas does recognize. And a holographic will is handwritten and signed by the decedent. Okay, so we said,
while they're still alive, right?
Right, correct. Yeah. Okay, now you're making me think of another movie, Weekend at Bernie's. But yeah, so that's how we deal with the gift list in Texas. We describe that list as a holographic will, and that we describe it as a holographic codicil, an amendment to the will.
Interesting. Yeah, that question was for me. It was in relation to the artwork. So
artwork, yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
The Monets,
You're gonna
Picassos.
see beer can collection that you got in your garage, Don. Are you gonna leave to the girls?
Yes.
I mean, just sitting here listening to you guys talking, I mean, we sell life insurance so that your family's taken care of. I mean, getting in touch with an attorney, it's almost like getting a different kind of insurance, an insurance that you're avoiding friction for your family and any problems when you do go. And we hear this in insurance, and I'm sure you hear it in your world too, Nathan. You know what? I don't need that stuff until I die. Well, then it's too late. I had a guy said, "Nah, I don't need that extra insurance, Eddie. If I die, I'll need." I go, if you don't die, let me know because I want the secret.
It's funny that you say that. I would say that I think that probably as much as 60% of the clients that walk in the door to get their estate planning done say something to me to the effect of, I handled my dad's estate and it was a nightmare. Mm-hmm. And that's why I'm getting this done now, because I do not want my children to have to deal with what I dealt with. I don't want my children's relationship with their siblings to be broken because there's a fight. I want it to be clear.
People get ugly when somebody dies. You don't think they're gonna do it, but they do it. It's human nature.
Yeah. And we see the same thing too, Nathan. A lot of times people don't think they need any financial protection, and then until something happens with their parents or a sibling or, God forbid, a child, and then they realize, we need some advice and some help here.
We can go on and on like this. It's been a lot of great information. I wanted everybody to know that starting next week, you're actually going to be able to go to our website. And at the partner page, you'll be able to get a hold of these fine folks here at North Texas Law. Okay. I have two things I want to say. Abby, you were totally wrong. Okay, you said Nathan was going to be really boring, and he was. I think you did. Abby. So whatever. And when did you live in Buffalo? What years was it, Nathan?
Okay, so
for a reason I'm asking.
Yeah, I was born in 75 in Philadelphia while my dad was in seminary. We moved, I think, the year after I was born.
And what year was that?
It would have been 76. So it was a bicentennial year. Yeah.
I thought that was the coolest year.
My sister was born in 76 in Buffalo. That's my recollection. And then we lived there for about 5 years. So we were there
till 1980-ish.
Yeah, 81. Blizzard
of 77.
Spirit, talking proud, listen up, and you hear it talking proud, talking. Did you have your whammy weenie from Bell's?
I don't know what that is, but
Donnie knows what it is. He knows all about them whammy weenies. Let me tell you what.
I did have a really awesome poster. It was an Abrams tank, and I think it said Kelly's Heroes.
Oh, I remember that poster. Jim actually. Kelly yeah,
was I think sitting on the tank, and it had Lofton and Smurla's.
Oh, wow.
And a bunch of the old school Buffalo. It was cool, and they were Jersey standing. It's pretty cool.
So, Abby, where are we? What's the address?
We are at 2309 Virginia Parkway here in McKinney, Texas.
And what's a good number to get hold of you guys?
That's a great question.
555-1212?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, it'll be posted on our website. We'll make sure we do that for you folks. So I want to wrap up the show like we always do. If you like working with people that are just like you, we're the people to see. www.ebiagency.com. You'll be able to go to the partner page, click it down. Same place you find Sassy Sarah, you'll be able to find these folks too. So, and I threw this down. You never got back to me yesterday when I texted you that challenge. Do you remember what the challenge was?
Oh, what was it? Over 1 million views or?
No. So we broke a record on our last show. In the first 55 minutes, we had 4,920,000 people. And Abby says she's going to beat it because she likes talking smack, not just about Nathan, but about everything in general. Okay. So once again, if you like working with people that are just like you, we're the people to see. Until we meet again, everybody stay safe. Thanks for joining us, folks. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ciao.